Hi, everyone, and welcome to another edition of How to Make a Life. Uh, on today's edition, we have Karan Singh, the founder of BigFoot Guitars, and we're going to be talking about custom guitars and the art of luthier. Karan, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's good to be here, Parag.
And luthier, am I pronouncing that right?
Yep, that's absolutely right.
Awesome. Now, tell me how a custom guitar like Bigfoot is different from something off the shelf. Who is it for, and what makes a person go, I think I need a custom guitar?
Wow, that's a lot of questions in one. Okay. Uh, so typically what tends to happen is, especially in a place like India, we've got a number of guitar stores. It's largely all mass-produced instruments,
Right.
which are fine for a certain target audience. Very often, as players get more experienced, they start their requirements change,
Right.
right? They're looking for subtle changes in the instrument, whether it's to do with the thickness of your neck or the profile of the neck or the playability of the instrument, and
Right.
then of course the all important tone. What tends to happen in factories, for the most part, is they build to an average. Um, their requirements are a little bit different. When you're mass producing an item, the biggest concern is making something that sounds good, not
Right.
necessarily exceptional, and also ensuring that everything stays structurally sound. So,
Right.
because getting returns and exchanges are a big detriment for them, right?
Yeah.
Because the factories are in other countries, and then
Right.
for every exchange that happens, you lose money, and you've lost out on the value of that entire instrument,
Right.
right? As a result of that, the guitars that come in from most factories, at least in the mid-range segment, mid-price range segment,
Okay.
they are overbuilt. They're built like tanks,
Right.
right? They're too stiff, which means that the soundboard does not move as much as required when the strings are strummed. The instrument isn't as responsive as it should be,
Right.
and what that translates into is that the tone is not as pleasing to the ears as it ought to be,
Okay.
right? Now, where luthiers come in is they take each piece of wood and they will push it to its limit, which
Right.
means that the instrument is built on the verge of collapsing,
Okay.
right? If it's done right,
Right. All right.
right? So it's built almost on the cusp of disaster. That's the standing joke in our
Okay.
community. And what that allows the instrument to do is really come alive when it's played,
Right.
right? Because when you're handcrafting a guitar at the level at which I try and operate, is
Okay.
we're trying to target the best possible sound. That is the primary concern.
Okay.
Everything else takes a backseat.
All
So
right.
as a result of that, the instruments are more fragile, which means they need more looking after.
Okay.
But when tone is your concern, then you do everything you can to make sure that every little ounce, every last ounce is extracted from that particular instrument. Yeah.
Understood. So I'm guessing these guitars don't go on tour as much.
They, well, there is a mix. They do go on tour as well. It's just that when people are using these instruments, they just require a certain level of care, which isn't really needed with something that's a whole lot more affordable and mass produced,
Fair
right?
enough.
Because they are more susceptible. These are more susceptible to changes in temperature, humidity, things like
Right.
that. You can definitely still be played on stage, and you can travel with them. That's all right. You just have to be aware of how to take care of them. Right.
Understood.
The simplest comparison is, it's like buying a Lamborghini versus buying a low end sedan or
Right.
something like
Right.
that, right?
Understood.
So
Right.
both vehicles will take you to your destination. You may enjoy one more,
Right.
right? But the care and maintenance for one is going to be a whole lot
It's a
different
lot more.
compared to the other. Yeah.
Understood. That makes
So
sense.
those are a couple of the differences. I mean, there's a lot more detail we
Sure.
can get into, but that's
All
a
right.
good starting point. Yeah.
No problem. Now, can you walk me through the process of ordering one of your guitars? Like, what do the mandates look like? How do you understand what the client is looking for? And what are some of the common requests that you receive from clients?
Sure. So uh, the process of ordering, the first thing that I do is I try and get an understanding of what style of music the musician plays.
Okay.
Yeah, I need to be on board with that. I also need to see whether the guitars that I build are in sync with that, right?
Okay.
I'm not a one-stop shop in the sense that
Sure.
I do not make a guitar to please everybody.
You
Yeah,
build everything.
that's a bit of a losing battle
But
because
that's
what
your
comes to me
niche.
yeah, my niche is building a fingerstyle player's guitar,
Right.
right? That's maybe 70 to 80% of my clientele is from that market,
Right.
right? In the acoustic segment.
Okay.
Um, for strummers, for people who are playing bluegrass, the requirements are a bit different. So I occasionally do build those as well. But what
Right.
I'm most known for would be fingerstyle instruments
Got
because
it.
the way I build is a more contemporary style of constructing the instrument. It isn't the traditional Martin or Gibson way of putting guitars together.
All right.
And what that translates into is a completely different tone. It's
Okay.
my instruments are extremely lightly built. The tops are thin. They're braced differently.
Okay.
They are voiced differently. So you get a lot of harmonic overtones. It's a very very quick attack, which is
Okay.
what fingerstyle players prefer. There's a lot of clarity between notes. You don't want to
Okay.
hear any muddiness
Right.
because as people play fingerstyle, they want each note to sing out. Right.
Right.
So you'll have tons of sustain, tons of there's a lot of dynamic response that's coming out
Right.
of the instrument,
Understood.
and it just feels lively. I don't know how
Got
it's an
it.
experience. So when
Right.
you're
Right.
playing live, it's you just feel everything vibrating in a different way. Let me put it that way.
I think I get what you're talking about. I also want to go back to a couple of terms that you mentioned. Bracing and voicing. What are these? What are these techniques or processes in the guitar building? In the whole process.
Right. Okay. So to put it very, very simply, the outside of an acoustic guitar will look pretty much the same across manufacturers and builders.
Okay.
Um, what distinguishes how a guitar sounds as compared to another guitar is what's going on inside of the top and the back,
All
right?
right.
So because the tops and backs are usually pretty thin, anywhere between 2 and 3 millimeters thick, to keep it structurally sound, they have wooden strips which are glued onto the inside.
Okay.
Those are called braces. Yeah.
Right.
So from a structural standpoint, it helps to keep the entire top together and prevents it from getting destroyed under string tension because the strings exert a significant amount of tension on the top when they're tuned up to pitch.
Is this
Right.
like the canvas
So
keys that you get to put into a painting to sort of tighten the canvas as it gets older to prevent it from sort of
similar.
collapsing? Yeah. Okay. Got it.
Similar, yes.
All
So
right.
structurally, it keeps the overall structure of your instrument
Yeah.
intact. But at the
Right.
same time, if it's too stiff,
Right.
then it prevents your top from acting as or from vibrating. Right.
Right.
Your
Right.
top is basically like an air pump which
Right.
moves as you strum the strings. The top is going to
Like a
really start
diaphragm.
moving.
Right.
Exactly. And the tighter your braces are, or the stiffer your braces are, the less
Right.
that movement happens. Right. Now the trade-off is that the stiffer it is, the more structurally sound your guitar is.
Okay.
Right?
All right.
But it's not going to be tonally as pleasing to listen to.
So how do you find that balance?
So that's exactly it. So that's the
Okay.
game,
Okay. We'll get to that. We'll
right?
get to that.